So, anyways, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, October 4th, 2021 to order. Up first, we have an invocation, Pastor.
Lord, we just come thanking you for your goodness and grace and your love and your mercy, and I thank you for each and every one here that participates in the government of this city and the people of this city. And Lord, I know that the city and the county, the whole area is suffering right now, Lord, for lack of workers. So Lord, we're just going to ask you, Lord, to send those people that will work and realize that, Father, that we need to. It's hardship on everyone. And Father, we want to thank you that we are blessed in a nation that has bountiful gifts and harvest. And Lord, some of the places that are not, Lord, we pray for them. And Lord, we ask you to give wisdom and guidance tonight's meeting. And we want to give you all the praise and glory, realizing we can do nothing without you. And I just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Powered up. All righty, up first, agenda approval. I'll entertain a motion. Well, first of all, does anyone have any changes or recommended changes, anything? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second. I have a motion, a second. And let me get my little button here, and we'll vote. We're working on it here. Kevin, Preble, and...
Press confirm.
I pressed it, but I can't see.
Yeah, you're confirmed now. Thank you, ma'am. And Rodney's not here, so Ray, can you handle that for me? There we go. Votes are locked. Yep. All right, everyone. You ready? I'm going to press it again.
You want to change it?
Ayes have it, so moved. We'll move right on into our first items. 1A, approval of the minutes of August 30th, 2021, regular city council meeting. Have a motion, have a second, any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. And tonight we do not have any proclamation, recognitions, or special presentations, even though I thought we did when I saw this, but this was just Ray giving me my burial plot awards. I'm the proud owner of 2 burial plots. Just remember, folks, Father Time is undefeated. All right, we will move on into item 3A. Public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings and any other matters not on the agenda. Do I have anyone from the general public that would like to come up and speak during the public comment period at this time? There's not a mad rush to the podium, so I am going to close this portion of the meeting, and we will move straight into item 4A, the city manager report. Lance.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 4A is staff is seeking council's permission to move forward with a task order for the ADA transition plan for the pedestrian facilities. This is necessary in order for us to qualify for federal grant assistance for highways and sidewalks. We currently do not have it, so we lose those bonus points. And in general, if you do not have those bonus points, you rarely qualify to get the grants from the at the federal levels. We have Mr. Michael Burgess here to answer any additional questions, or myself.
Ms. Hebert.
I was going to make the recommended motion to authorize the city manager to execute a task order with Bakersville Donovan Engineering to perform those tasks identified in the scope of work and to provide the city with an ADA transition plan that is consistent with applicable federal law and FDOT requirements.
I have a motion, I have a second, discussion. Seeing none? Okay, we got it. We'll take it to a vote. Excuse me. Ayes have it, so moved. Lance?
Thank you, sir. Item 4B is Resolution 21-03 regarding the paid parking fund and the establishment of that fund that will designate how the funds generated through parking fees will be used in the future. And Mr. Webb Warren has put this item together.
Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Mayor and City Council. As Lance said, this paid parking fund will, in essence, restrict the revenues from our paid parking lots to go to both our paid parking facilities, future facilities, whether it's garages or additional just regular flat parking, as well as transit facilities within those paid parking lots. Our paid parking has gone up over a couple of years, and we're proud that we are able to continue to expand our parking options for our citizens and visitors, and this will help us continue to do so.
Thank you, Webb. And this ordinance that being presented to us, Lance, is a direct result of the ask from City Council a couple meetings ago?
It was actually in June at one of our workshops. It was asked by City Council to bring back in October, so staff did so.
All righty. Well, at this point, I believe a motion's needed here, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion for you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-03 and for staff to establish a special revenue fund for paid parking fees.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion on this motion?
I'd just like to say this is amazing. I remember when we were first talking about implementing this and the numbers were sort of trickling in and we thought, maybe it wasn't the right decision. And now we're at $500,000. So it's very good to see what's coming in and how we can potentially feed it back into our infrastructure and such. So thank you.
All right, anyone else? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Let's move forward with a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Lance?
Mr. Mayor, item 4C is staff recommendation to enhance the benefits to our year-round permanent residents by including additional areas where they could park for free on the current parking pass. The new areas would include the Marler parking lot and the Zerby lots, in addition to what is already on the pass, which is the Crystal Beach and the Noriega Point area. This is an additional benefit for our residents, and staff would hope that council would take positive action on this.
All right. First up is Ms. Abear.
I was going to make a motion to move to adopt Resolution 2021-14.
I have a motion. I have a second.
I have a quick request. I was going to see, I know we're going to go to discussion after this, but I would be inclined to move to adopt this resolution as well, but effective immediately if possible.
Okay. Teresa?
Happy to amend it to immediately.
All right, so I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. Now we can discuss. Do you want to add to that, Johnny?
I just want to say, I think this is an awesome thing, just from all I've talked to dozens of people who have requested this, especially when we went to paid parking. I think it's a wonderful thing for residents. I think, what it reminds me of is Walton County, the way they've got the beach parking pass or the beach permits or whatever. You see one of those, it's like they're the real deal, you know what I mean? And I think I would take great pride in having one of these stickers on my vehicle.
And I think there's two wins here. The first win, of course, was what we just passed, the last motion, with trying to provide even more parking for our residents and our visitors. It's something that, you see on social media, people complain, oh, they're charging for parking, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, well, we're charging for parking to provide you more parking. So that's one good defense. Number two is now, and by the way, if you live here, you get to park for free. And so for our residents, for the voters, this is a win-win in both motions, and hopefully approval of this one. Mr. Destin, I see you're up.
You just perhaps answered one of my questions, that there was no fee associated with it. The other question is for the city attorney, can we do that? Can we legally charge everybody but a resident?
Yeah, there are some, I think you're getting at equal protection clause issues, but for something like this, generally courts have upheld things like this, so.
Okay.
Mr. Bagby.
Do we have the infrastructure in place to actually start this immediately? Do we have the number, are we prepared for 500 people to come down to City Hall tomorrow and go, hey, I saw the meeting last night, give me my parking pass? So I just want, my sense is we don't have that. So while I appreciate let's start it immediately, we need, in transparency to our citizens, to say, hey, please don't come down tomorrow, because immediate doesn't really mean immediate, but it means as soon as possible.
Just a quick, not a rebuttal, but wouldn't it, if we made it effective immediately, I mean, obviously, if we put this in play right now, if your respective parking passes work, if you have let's say you have a parking pass for, well, shoot, I guess, where all do we have? We have a beach parking pass, and then
Henderson.
So the paid parking pass currently is for the beach districts, and it is I believe, an orange beach parking pass that is affixed to the window.
But not everybody has that. See, I don't have a beach parking pass because I don't need a beach parking pass. But I do need one to come downtown and go down to the Harbor District or whatever, and I would come get one. I just want to make sure we have the infrastructure in place that we aren't false advertising here. I want it immediate too, but if we can't do it immediate, how long does it take to get new passes or, stickers or whatever, and a system, a program into the computer where we can actually track this?
We have an inventory of stickers for our current beach parking. What I would propose, if council does wish to go ahead and enact this immediately, is to just utilize the rest of our beach parking passes for this, for the remainder, 50 days, 55 days, until the end of the year, and then we will roll it over into a new sticker, maybe similar to what Mr. King had suggested, on January 1st. But we do have stickers in stock right now. I would say contingent on that supply, not being mad rush tomorrow and us, having 300 people to process, that we should have enough stickers to get us through the end of the year.
Okay.
How much time do you need in the office to process people applying? I mean, do you need a week at least, or?
So people can apply currently online, so we encourage that, and that will have it where when they come in, they're ready. So that is where we will push. What I would suggest is, I would like to have an opportunity tomorrow and Wednesday to work with our public information officer as well as administration, and we can put that plan together and have a good, concise message for our residents so they know exactly what to expect.
All right, I got a couple of folks that want to speak. Dr. Ramswell, then Mr. King, and then you, Mr. Destin. Go ahead, Dr. Ramswell.
Thank you. I did have one question. Is this one of those that when we say Destin residents, we actually mean City of Destin residents?
Correctamundo.
Because I note in here, it just says full-time Destin residents, and I think we need to clarify that, because people that have a Destin 32541 are going to expect that unless we specify City of Destin.
I believe it says in the resolution, I have to go look, that it does say within the incorporated city limits
Okay,
of
so
Destin.
I'm looking at the staff report and it didn't
Okay.
separated out, so.
It is within the city limits, and it is a full-time resident, and it's the same criteria that we use for our Henderson Beach passes, our Joe's Bayou passes, and of course, our beach parking passes.
Fantastic.
We're just getting more and more carrots for that annexation issue, aren't we? Mr. King, and then Mr. Destin.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I didn't mean that we should have brand-new parking passes tonight. I think that what I'm saying, I have one of these. Yeah. Y'all come file on in. No, what I was suggesting, I guess I should have clarified, been more specific. What I was saying is, I do have a pass, one of those that I've spent a decent amount of time down at in Noriego going to a boat, and it's a wonderful thing. If a guy like me shows up in the city lot tomorrow, is Joey going to write me a ticket? That's what I'm saying is, can we do that? Also, on top of that, I think it should be in this. I don't want to spend too much, waste y'all's time too much, but I think it'd be cool to have something that was indicative of the city of Destin, that's attractive, that looks good, that says, man, that guy or gal lives in Destin, Florida. That's cool.
I think staff thinks that's a good idea. We are now at October 4th, so we got a couple of months that we can, I said 50 days earlier, I'm sorry, I'm about 30 days off there.
What a better way to use our compass
yeah.
logo.
But yeah, we can look at that and see what we can do to make that something that residents can be proud to affix to their window, and be proud to be part of that program.
All righty, I got Mr. Destin.
Probably a question I'm foolish to ask, but employees who work on the harbor, who are residents, I suppose can get one of these passes and park in the parking lots now where they are not allowed without paying at the moment. Is that correct?
That'd be correct.
Good for them. Okay.
Good.
All right.
Another carrot. Yeah, the way you were going, I thought we have you have 30 minutes to come on down. Yeah, we go. No, we're not going to do that. We'll give city staff a couple days to get this put together. All right, Lance, we're back to you. Oh, no, sorry about that. We got to vote. We just assumed everybody was in agreement on it. All right, we have a motion.
Just real quick before you take the vote, I just want to clarify the motion just from staff's perspective so that we can amend the resolution accordingly. The last whereas clause says the resident parking pass program runs on a calendar year and the city desires to establish effective date starting date of 1/01/2022. We'll change that starting date of 1/01/2022 to effective immediately. That is how we'll strike through that resolution, if that's okay with the council.
Yeah, I think that works. Immediately being whenever Webb says we can do it, which is now. Practical. All right, so we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? The vote is unanimous. All right, Lance.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Up next, we have our Library Director, Ms. Wen Livingston, who is going to show off a couple of the new enhancements that have been made to the Destin Library. I believe we have some pictures that Mr. Warren is going to be putting up on the screen for us to help illustrate the improvements.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Good to see you. If you recall, last year you guys approved for us a grant for the library, and with that grant money, we have installed some pieces into the library. The first one that you see there is our self-check station, and it speeds up the checkout process. People swipe their card, they put their books on that little pad there, and it checks them out, and you print your receipt, and off you go. We've also connected this to our public access printer and copier, so it takes care of handling all the money for the printing and copying, and that the public do as well. And it is definitely a nice piece. We got that originally when we were starting off with COVID to try to have something that was a little less contact that people could do for themselves if they wanted to. The other piece I think he has a picture of is the it is the tablet station, which holds 6 Samsung tablets, and patrons can check those out in the library. You can choose either an adult screen or child screen, and it has on the front there shortcuts taking you to different things that adults may like YouTube, and for kids, some of their games and things that they want to, and it also goes to the internet. It also has a camera in it. So people that need to do a meeting or something and they don't have access to a device with a camera could check one of those out and then do their virtual meeting that way. When you're finished with it, you put it back in the slot and it wipes itself, so all of your information and privacy is secure. The other piece that we don't have a picture of are gates that are at the front gate, the front door, and those read the RFID tags when people come in and out. So if something doesn't get checked out properly, it catches those, so we can make sure we can get them checked out so we can get our statistics. The other thing that it has is a people counter, and it counts people all during the day, so we can check to see when are we busiest and when are we slow, so we can start gathering stats on that to help us better with scheduling. And so those are our new pieces. Come check them out. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Wynn.
I'd like to make the motion to move to approve the Okaloosa County Public Library Cooperative Interlocal Agreement and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
That's going to be on consent agenda. This is just informational for now.
What's the response been with those iPads?
They're Samsungs.
The
Right now,
pads.
they just got up last week, and people are still looking at them like, well, what is this? But we've put a sign up there this week, and, we'll start tracking the circs on them that way. And it was another thing that came about from COVID, because we were having people when we were closed that needed access to a computer, but, they couldn't come into the building. So my thought was, well, I'd check one of those tablets out to them, and then they could, sit out front and use them. So, and they're easier to clean and wipe down that way. So we think people are going to enjoy them now that they're in and know what they are. So,
Thank you very much.
I have just a question about security on them. Is this something somebody can go out to their car and they've just got a brand new tablet with no ID or anything to sort of track?
No, if you get a certain number of feet away from the library and our Wi-Fi, it shuts itself down and it just becomes a brick. It's totally not usable. And so that kind of prevents that. And then also you have to check it out with your library card to get it off of the station there, so we know who has it.
Perfect.
We'll send Joey out to get them.
There you go.
Guys in the back.
During his lunch break
Yes.
and his free time. All right, thank you, ma'am. Great update. Lance?
Thanks, sir. Next up, staff has been in constant contact with our contracted project manager for the undergrounding, and along with Mr. Destin, we plan to meet with them next week to go over some hot topics, and Jeff Kozad, our project manager, has an update on that.
Thanks, Lance. Utility Consultants of Florida will be meeting with staff next week, Wednesday, October 13th, and at that meeting, we'll be reviewing the opinion of probable cost and potential Phase 1 logistical limits, as well as other phasing options. And we've got 3 hours set aside to meet with them. If we need to, we're going to meet the following morning as well to go over all this. And Chef Wright will be at the meeting as well, and hopefully give us some information and updates on the franchise agreement and the underground agreement that he's working on. So that's happening next week, and Mr. Destin's going to be attending that. So we'll probably be bringing you back information at some point in the near future. And I would imagine Utility Consultants of Florida will also make a presentation to council at some point in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. On top of that, I just wanted to bring to your attention that this process is moving forward quicker than we thought. We may and probably will need to call a special meeting before the end of the month to bring the franchise agreement along with the addendum that would include the undergrounding information to the council. And we're thinking potentially about a date of Thursday, the 21st. That's not set in stone. I'm just throwing things at the wall to see what will stick. But we don't think we should put it on the next agenda because it's a very full agenda, but we do need to get it done before the 26th of the month, which is when the Florida Commission meets, and we'll make a ruling on some other things. So does anyone have any opinions on the 21st, or should I just have Ray work with y'all to secure a date moving forward?
I know that I have a conflict on that date. I talked with Kyle earlier. I thought I could do it, but I've got a long trip. I won't even hit the dock till 6 o'clock, so. And we have the Okaloosa County League of Cities dinner in Fort Walton Beach that same night.
Okay.
So that following Monday would probably make sense, but then that's only a day before that committee meeting. So if I'm the only one that couldn't make that Thursday meeting, I think that's probably would be prudent to hold it then and listen to some of the other council members. Mayor Pro Tem could handle that special meeting. I don't think it'll last very long, but if there's consensus here to do that Thursday, the 21st, I think that's what we should do.
Okay. We'll have Ray verify that, but right now we'll shoot for the 21st. Very good, thank you. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, well, we don't have any public hearings tonight. Up next will be our consent agenda, so I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion to approve, I got a second, and we'll take a vote. Ayes have it, vote is unanimous, so moved. Ray, clear my thing. I hit the button too many times. All right. Last up is our comments, presentations from the Mayor's Council, Land Use Attorney, and City Attorney. Up first, Ms. Braid's not here. Dr. Ramswell, I see you have an item under yours, so take it away. You have the floor.
All righty. So I had talked about the parks and the parking codes and exactly how many spaces are required at our parks currently, what we're looking at. And I chatted with Lewis at my agenda meeting, but do you want to share with me what you talked about? And I don't know if Kim's on the phone, because she gave me a little bit more information about what's currently in our code and what you're doing looking ahead with those rows and accesses.
I am, but you all know. But I will let Lewis start off.
Go ahead, Kim. Ladies first.
You're up, Kim. He deferred to you.
Okay, well, Lewis has all of the information, but basically the parks require city parks, formally designated city parks. Currently, the parking requirement is 1 space per 5,000 square feet. Lewis can get into that with you and whether that's reasonable or not from a planning perspective. And if you all think that's something that needs to be amended, we can certainly bring back an ordinance for council consideration. We would just need that directive. I believe staff is looking at it, though, in connection with the ongoing code rewrite as well. So he may have an opinion on doing that altogether, but if it's something you wanted to prioritize and do sooner rather than later, we could certainly, take that directive from you tonight. And if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Kim. We'll turn it over to Lewis.
I don't think I've got anything further to add to that, unless council members got a question.
I have a question before you. I'll probably ask it. What does 1 space per 5,000 foot look like in our existing parks?
I think there was one member of the public, Ms. Trammell, that noted the inadequacy of that standard, and clearly we're looking at it. I think it needs to be a little higher than that.
And the reason I ask that, because we just got a park that was built with federal monies, or Florida Land Trust monies, and was that built with that square footage per parking spot in mind?
The answer is yes, and also these, our two parking lots across, you're talking about the Royal Melvin, I'm assuming. Our two public parking lots up on the north side are also counted as part of that.
Good deal. And then I know you said that we had asked you all to look into the different right-of-ways and potential access points, and that since those are not considered a park, that they wouldn't be required to have parking. Is that correct?
That's, go ahead, Louis.
Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say that that's correct. It's considered right-of-way, those areas that you're talking about, and the park requirement would not apply to areas that are not actually city parks.
And then going forward, if we were to change anything, current ones would be grandfathered, as similarly, anything that was, any park that was already in place when we established the one space per 5,000 square foot is not held to that standard either, correct?
The answer is yes, unless the city, given these are city facilities, would like to do something special.
Thank you for that.
Right, we're kind of, we'd be affecting our own property. So to the extent, a park is constructed with federal or state funding, we would have to be consistent with any grant requirements on our plans, but it is our property, so outside of any of those requirements, we could reevaluate parking at our own parks.
Excellent, thank you. I don't,
Dr. Rambles, I have a couple of people that want to weigh in, so you still have the floor. Mr. Bagby.
So Louis, my question is, in development, you can have what we call neighborhood parks, pocket parks, or some people call them neighborhood parks, community neighborhood / pocket parks. And so can we, one thing, if we do change it, I'm not saying we have to change it, but if we do change it, I would like to see that we differentiate between the two. So I understand the parking requirement for a community park, Leonard Destin Park or something where the whole community is there. But a little pocket park is a parcel. Like Kel Air. Yeah, like Kel Air has one. There are pocket parks there which are the potential. Someone could give us a lot and say, but I want to make it a lot, a park for this neighborhood, for whatever neighborhood in the town, or just for that general area. And if they did that, I wouldn't want a parking requirement, because that's not a park people drive in to use. They walk their dog there, or they go play with their kids there, or whatever. So if we do change this, I would like to see us differentiate between those two, and you identify parking requirements for community parks and minimal to none for neighborhood or pocket parks. Thank you.
Mr. Destin.
That was basically my question too. I know we've done a number of neighborhood parks where we didn't provide parking at all because the neighbor didn't want it. Right. And so I wanted to make sure that we did not prohibit that ability.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, is that all you have tonight? Or
nope, got a couple other things. One of them is just something I reached out to Michael about. I received a call from one of the firemen, and he was concerned and wanted to report that they have had several accidents and near accidents on Airport where we have a mid-street crosswalk, but it's not lit up. There's no lights, no signage, nothing of that nature. So what they've seen is somebody in the right lane will stop to let someone walk, but then somebody impatient's trying to cut around and go on that left lane and almost runs over the person, or causes a rear end or something. So Michael, do you want to, I know you said you were going to try and look into it. I don't know if you've had a chance, but do you have anything to report or say about that?
Yes, ma'am. Right after our call, I reached out to Community Development and spoke to Joe Bodie over there concerning the state statute as far as crosswalks are concerned. And then I reached out to our operations supervisor, Dennis Dykes, to see how many of those stop while pedestrians in crosswalk signs that we have for the markers that are already there. And we have about a dozen. And so we've created a work order to go ahead and place those.
Isn't there 2 crosswalks on Airport Road like that, one by the fire department, so that's why those guys saw that, and another one
There
down
are at least 3 or 4.
3.
Yeah, there are 2 on the stretch right down here as you take a right off of Commons, and then there are 2 around the corner as you approach the fire station.
So is council's recommendation then that we try to remedy all 4 of those crosswalks on that road?
Whoops, sorry. Well, you said you put in a work order. Was it for all of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it sounds like he's been proactive. We don't need to give you any further guidance. I mean, thank you for that, because obviously it's a concern when the fire district themselves are having the guys reach out. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just as a side note, we have been in discussions with Gulf Power to change out the lighting on Airport Road from those orange sodium lights to a brighter LED fixture that gives out more light, so that may assist in that as well.
Mr. Destin?
Just a question. Our plan is to paint them and make them look like the crosswalks in other parts of the town. What is the plan exactly?
The crosswalks on Airport Road, years ago, before I worked here, they had these lace-type thermoplastic inserts that we have no longer been able to secure or reinstall. We've been putting in traditional 12-inch wide rail-type crosswalks at all those facilities.
So I guess my question is, this is one of the steps we need to take towards slowing traffic down on Airport. Can we put in something that's a little more noticeable? Will there be signs like there are on the ones on Calhoun by the parks? Or are we just going to put some striping on the road?
At this point, striping on the road and refreshing the sign stands at each one of the crosswalks.
What does refreshing mean?
If the signs are faded, we'll replace those.
So we're going to put back the same size, we're just going to replace the ones that are faded?
And we'll add an additional sign that says stop for pedestrians in crosswalk.
In the median as well? I think that's, because that would be for people in that left lane that are trying to cut around.
We'll go take a look at each of those crossings, and I'll consult with city manager, and we'll get those dressed up as soon as we can and as best we can at this point.
Okay, well, just in the spirit, always make sure that you guys have the proper backing that you have when you go forward. I'll make a motion asking the city manager to direct you all to go forward with that project.
Can we clarify? I kind of would like to see the flashing lights or something like we have right out here between the annex and City Hall.
Jim, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, that was what I asked to speak on, is the solar-powered flashing lights or whatever that are activated, if we could have those. I'm not sure how much, I drive up and down, I don't see a lot of people crossing Airport, to be honest with you. But there are some people that I see them walking, usually going to work down at the Commons or whatever. So, I'm not sure all 4 of them have to be flashing, but there are probably a couple that would need to be flashing, because people, that sign, doesn't matter how reflective it is at night, people that don't live here don't know it's there. But that flashing light, they see that, and at least it will draw their attention to that.
Yeah, and our whole purpose on Airport Road has been to slow down the traffic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this just adds to that effect. So we can't go wrong, Michael. I just, those crosswalks you did down by the new park on Calhoun, that's what I think, that's a good crosswalk, and I don't see any reason not to. Jim, I probably go up and down that road a little bit more than you do, and there is a lot of pedestrian traffic, and it's been more pedestrian traffic in the last 12 months than ever before. So
I see them a lot at this the very first mid-cross, if you were to go from here and turn right on Airport, I see a lot at that first one there. Yeah, that Quail Run, or I'm not sure what.
All right, Johnny?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Just real quick, I was gonna say, I noticed those for sure. I was behind you when we were coming down Airport on the way here, and there's a speed limit flasher, and you put your brakes on. I know I put my brakes on. Normally, I start slowing down about the hospital, getting ready for the turn, and it caused me to slow down again. So I think you're right. Anything flashing gets your attention. And there was a pile of people on Airport Road this afternoon. There always is.
I was going to modify the motion to direct city manager to ask Mr. Burgess to bring us back a price on putting those lights out so that we can understand what we're doing. They are not cheap, I know, before you go forward, so we can go ahead and approve that too.
Second.
So we have amended motion, the second approved it. Do you know what we're going with it? Okay, everybody's shaking their head yes, so let's go ahead and take this to a vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
Great, and the last thing I have is something that we can put on a future agenda, but I just wanted to call y'all's attention to it. I had sent it to Ray and our attorneys, and he sent it to you guys, I believe, yesterday. And, this is something that we've talked in the past about how we've had some sort of issues sometimes with compatibility between city ordinances and regulations and some of the county, especially when we have unincorporated county, literally adjacent to some of the city areas. And one of those we've talked about in the past was signage and how the county will allow the feathers, but we do not. And so some businesses think that's unfair. Well, we worked really hard to come up with a height that we thought was appropriate for the city, and it took multiple visioning sessions and a lot of talking and a lot of meetings, and we set, I believe for this particular area, 30 feet. And this caught my eye because in the paper, the county is having a meeting to change the height for areas directly adjacent to residential zone properties from 35 to 45 feet. So that's 15 feet above what we're going to be in the same area for any zoning of that nature where we're next to county. So they're also increasing their floor area ratio from 0.75 to 2.0. So that's a lot of a change from what we had decided as a council in the past that we wanted to see. So this is an area where I'd really like to see us have Lewis and whomever else work with the county to come up with some sort of interlocal agreement of some sort to say, look, this is what we're trying to do. How can we kind of negotiate and find a middle ground, something we can both agree on? Or maybe they agree that since it's right next to us, maybe we annex. I don't know, but something to talk about for the future, because here we are again, going to have something right next to us, right in our area, that is different from what we're allowing.
Thank you, Mayor. That is also something they're voting on the 18th?
This is tomorrow, a hearing tomorrow.
It's a public hearing, right?
Yep, October 5th, meeting held 8:30 a.m. Crestview.
Oh, yeah. Far away as they can get. Kevin?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ramsell, for bringing this up. This might be a staff or attorney question, but has the county contacted any of us in regards to this particular ordinance and kind of worked with our land use or planning or anybody?
We have contacted them and for background information, we're waiting to hear from them.
But prior to this, did they like call us, kind of say, hey, we're going to be doing something like this?
No, they didn't.
So how does don't we have an interlocal agreement with the county for planning and development?
Well, they're supposed to, yes.
So would this been something that they should have possibly kind of talked with us if they were going to follow their interlocal agreement?
Correct.
So, I guess the county didn't want to ask anything to the city about this, even though it's impacting us. So it's interesting. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Kim. I heard you key your mic. You need to add something?
No, I think Lewis responded. I mean, we do have an existing joint planning agreement with the county, but if we get council directive, we can certainly work with the county to expand on the existing agreement. That's one option. Other options that the city council could consider to make, the city's thoughts on it known is to direct us to come back with a resolution explaining our position to the county as far as, adjoining areas. And then, as Dr. Ramswell suggested, of course, properties could be looked at on a case-by-case basis for annexation. But I think probably the recommended course of action, if you were to ask my opinion on that, would be to talk to the county about expanding on the existing JPA, Joint Planning Agreement.
Thank you, Kim. I got Mr. Bagby up next, and before that, a question I saw when you sent that out tonight. What project, is that just a non-conforming use or something, the reason they're doing this?
No, it's just a notice of a public hearing where they're amending their current standards.
Countywide? Mm-hmm. Okay, so not necessarily.
Right, it's not targeted to us, it's
right.
countywide.
I wanted to make that clear on the public record. It's not a thing targeting the city of Destin. This is a countywide issue. Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Which segues into my question. What parcels that connect to the city of Destin, how many parcels and where are they, would this affect? Because if they're all over, in Regatta Bay or someplace, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Airport, maybe? Some of the ones along Airport?
Right, so we have not done an exact study on it. That's part of what, once we get the information from them, we can expand on that. But
Yeah, I would just ask that y'all, before we go too far down this trail, that we know if we're talking one parcel or 100 parcels, or, what's our scale here. And I think my opinion is, I would prefer the staff negotiate the JPA as opposed to a resolution. A resolution is kind of a punch in the nose type thing, whereas the staff working with the county staff to try, and personally, I'm more concerned about the floor area ratio. I understand how hard y'all fought on the 15 feet, but that change is astronomical compared to the 15 feet. And so that would be the thing that I would focus. So if we can get it down to 40 feet and get the floor area ratio, but if all these lots are in Crestview, that's their battle to fight. Thanks.
Bam.
So is there a motion that we need to do, a motion to direct Lance, to direct staff to review our interlocal agreement, or?
I think we just do, you make the recommendation for staff, and then we'll put it on the agenda. And then we can make motions under that deal. You good with that? All right.
Terrific. And then the only other thing I have is just a general announcement, and I don't know how many of you guys are Van Halen and Great White fans, but Mitch Malloy, who is the singer for them, is doing a benefit concert for Destin High School on October the 9th. So Saturday, starting at 5:30. So if y'all want to come get a dose of the 80s and benefit the high school, it's going to be at Maddie Kelly, that's a tongue twister tonight, Maddie Kelly Cultural Arts Village, right behind the high school. So,
awesome, thank you.
You're welcome, thank y'all.
Mr. Destin. Mr. Bagby, you do have something, lay it out, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope to bring back at the first meeting in November a staff reporting matrix. And what I'm talking about, we used to have one, or a semblance of one, where we had monthly reports like the financials, the council reports where people, the TDC rep would say, hey, here's what the TDC did last month when they met monthly, or the TPO or MPO, the reps, they would update the council. We have a little information sharing, which is what we do. And monthly, I think we had an HR report or whatever, quarterly, we had like the investment report, we had the legal report where not an in-depth, what I'm trying to get away from is this thing, okay? Which I've read twice, the first 2 times I got it. And I'm like, well, where are the changes? Did anything change? Because this is a lot of minutia that really doesn't help me. And I don't know if it helps anybody. I don't know. I'm not going to call anybody out because y'all probably all read it, but I'm not reading this entire thing again.
We made them do it.
Okay. Well,
So in defense
I'll
of the
make the
staff,
motion.
it's our fault.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to unmake them do it because it doesn't, it's a manager's tool, not a council or a board's tool. And if he wants to use that, God bless him, let him. But what I want to do is something that we can use, so we have a quarterly library report, because this also feeds into our public information, where we tell the citizens the story of how successful our staff is, and they checked out 8 million books last quarter, and they did, they reviewed 500 plans last quarter, and they did, but it gives us a sense of the work the staff is actually doing. And so I hope to bring back that matrix, but the reason I put it on an agenda is if you have something you want to see, okay, the staff report on quarterly, every meeting, monthly, whatever, please give that to Lance and say, because I've already told him, I want the monthly financials, I want the quarterly investment report, I want a quarterly HR report, and we can do it more often. I want a quarterly legal report just that says, here are the outstanding cases that haven't been solved. It's not to get into a discussion at the meeting on, well, where are we exactly on this? If you want to know, or if I want to know where we are on a single case, you call the attorney up and you say, hey, I saw in your report last night, we got 6 and there's a new one, and I don't remember us discussing that. Tell me about it or whatever. But if you have something you want the staff to report on a regular basis, please let Lance know.
Jim, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll get you done. So this matrix, the intent is to lessen their workload from what we are doing now.
Yes.
And who do you want to develop the matrix?
Well, Lance and I are going to develop the matrix.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I was just going to say, one of the reasons it started was because there were so many things that different council members would bring up and say, look into this, look into that we were all forgetting. So it started as a tracking so that not only would we not forget, it would help staff and Lance better manage, what it was that we had handed out. So if there's a better system, I'm all for it, because I'm like, there are things that will be added, but they actually are more relevant to a topic that's already listed on page 7 or something. So I think the idea was great, and I love that you've kept up with it, but I would like to maybe see it.
I think what Jim's saying is we've created a monster and we need to simplify, keep things simple, because the simpler it is for us in our briefing documents, the better legislative ideas and actions and things will take place. Not only that, but you all interact with the public and people that live here. And what he's talking about will equip us with knowledge to share that with the general public, not only here in the meetings, but, one-on-one and stuff like that. So Jim, I really support this idea.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's a stoplight chart. It's where we get a sense of what's going on in the staff without knowing that they walk to the bathroom at 8:03 a.m. and then they open the door at 8:04 a.m. I mean, that's what this thing, no offense, and I'll make the motion to not publish this to the council anymore, just because I think we need to undo, if it was a directive of the council.
Webb just seconded that motion.
No, if it was a directive of the council, then the council should undo it.
Do we need a motion for this matrix, or just let you go ahead and work with Lance to create it?
All right.
And then we can, at that time, make a motion to accept it as is, or make changes and what have you? Is everyone more comfortable with doing that? Let them go ahead and show us what he's talking about and what him and Lance are talking about, and then we'll take a final action once we see it.
Okay.
So we're clear not to send that out on Fridays?
True.
staff is clear not to send that report out on Fridays?
Yeah, I'm happy if you don't send this out on Friday.
just wanna
because
make sure.
I read what you send me, and I don't want to say I'm not reading what you're sending me, because that would be a bad council person, but I'm not reading this anymore.
What kind of timeline do you think it'll take, Lance, Jim, to?
First meeting in November, I expect to have
Okay.
it for you. But the reason I bring it up tonight in public forum is my area, little area of expertise is the financial investment type stuff. A little bit of community development, but everybody up here has areas of expertise. Mr. Destin has probably more areas of expertise than I'll ever have in my life. But if there's if you want to know how many feet of sidewalk got poured or paved or whatever in the last quarter, let Lance know that that's a report you want to see every quarter, and the staff can produce that. I know the financial reports and the HR reports that I want to see and how often I want to see them.
Right.
So what you want to see, I want in that matrix.
Well, I think we just use,
It was tasking, you know, when we would task for something, and then suddenly you realize 6 months has gone by, and you forgot what it was you tasked, and so did they. So it's just trying to keep up with everything that, you know, we all have going.
yeah, and Ray's still going to give us our action report after what we've done, the Monday before, what have you. So that'll help us in the interim to keep up on what's been done. So Lance and Jim, I look forward to seeing your matrix at the first of the month. Go ahead, Jim.
I had one more thing that I didn't discuss on the parking passes. Are they limited to one per household? Two per household? Okay. As long as there's a limit. I couldn't remember, I thought there was a limit because I can see people with 6 cars and they all work down at, Mr. Destin's place, either one of his place, yeah, then that would be.
They need to carpool anyways. Is that all you got, Jim? All right, Ms. Abear.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of items on there. The beach flag ordinance, I had the city manager put this on here because the sheriff's department has asked that we coordinate that our ordinance is written on the flag ordinance of what the colors all are and sort of make it to where it correlates with what they have as the county. So it's the same across the board, the understanding of it. And I don't know, do you need a motion for us, or do we, does that need to be something we do, or you can handle that, just, that ordinance is already being worked on, right?
No, I think we can bring that back, because we're going to mimic what the county has on the books so that the sheriff has the capability of making arrests, issuing citations if double red flags are not observed.
Dr. Ramsell, you have a comment on that?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I spoke with Charlie Nix today, and he actually gave me it's 16-43, and he was essentially just saying that what is in the county code is fine and it's worked, but like you just said, I mean, if we can mimic that it's not necessarily a misunderstanding, but it would be sort of a double layer of authority moving forward.
That's what he asked me, to make sure that we
Yeah.
just sort of made it seamless, so they didn't have to figure out which area of which city, if it's all in the county. So that was, okay, so you've got that then, Lance, that's a good thing. Okay, great. My second item is the Aquatic Center landscaping. I know that we were all very happy to help Mr. Parker Destin get some funds for them. And after a few weeks of trying to get a coordinated effort on the landscaping of the Aquatic Center, because we really couldn't afford the upkeep of it, Parker did a phenomenal job and put together a crew, and they got a lot done, and it looks really nice. And they've also put together a program now for Sundays, starting October 3rd, yesterday. And we've got the flyers in front of us, but Webb, would you be so kind as to show the photos of the before and after, as well as give a little bit more update on this so that people can find it on the city page? Because this is more on, we want to get people involved as far as just the citizens and those that use the Aquatic Center. Right, Webb?
That is correct, and a huge thanks to Mr. Parker Destin and the volunteers. I believe they had 6 volunteers out there yesterday working on this, and as you can tell, this is some pictures that Parker sent us. This was the before. There's a little bit of some high grass, certainly needed some maintenance there. This is the after. Some of the folks out there weed eating some of the tall grass. There's the after. And I'm sorry, that's a little bit small, but much improved, and it looks really good out there. Also, Kathy Heapy from the Emerald Coast Fitness Center did send us an email. I provided a copy in your chair. Basically, other efforts they're making, some in conjunction with the Destin High School, as well as reaching out for other volunteers and some maintenance of their equipment so they can better keep up with this. But again, they are asking for volunteers the first Sunday of each month to help keep up with this.
Great, thank you. And then the third item I have is, as the TPO primary for the city, the Transportation Committee, Mr. Bagby, just so you know, they are having an Emerald Coast Transportation Symposium. They haven't had one in the last couple of years because of what's been going on with the pandemic. But this year, the 4th and 5th of November, it's a Thursday and Friday. It's all day, and it's going to be local here in Sandestin at the Hilton. And as the primary member, I am not able to attend because I'm now back full-time working in my professional field. And it's a Thursday, the November 4th, and Friday, November 5th. And the Hilton has dropped the rate down to $90 for a $300 room. They're working with the Symposium to get everybody in for that rate, as well as the registration fee. Since I can't go, Rodney is the other primary, Johnny's the secondary, and Mayor. So if any of y'all can go to make sure we're well represented. If not, Jim Wood, the citizen member of the TPO, said he would go, and he's very well versed on all of the transportation issues throughout, and knows the plan all the way up to the 45 years out from right now. So tonight, I just wanted to make sure that somebody let Ray know, because we have to register before the 15th of October to get that rate and get the room. So if you know you can make it, Mayor, great, or if Johnny, if you can make it. Since Rodney's not here, I don't want to speak for him, but
I did ask Mr. Braden if he was able to attend, and he said he was not due to a conflict.
I can make that commitment. I'm just looking at my schedule, so
Ray,
I'll attend it, but I'm not going to stay there.
you could do a staycation.
No, I'm not. I'm going to drive. I got a good place to eat there, but I'm not going to stay there.
Okay.
I will sign up, though. I'll take care of that as far as.
Ray will register you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Ray. I already put it on my schedule.
Thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
Ms. Xavier, I wanted to, I guess, build on something. You had the beach flag ordinance, and it reminded me of a couple things. And when I was talking to Captain Nix, he brought something up. I believe one of the citizens had emailed a suggestion about bags or something about more advertising in terms of getting the beach flag system awareness out there. Coasters, yes. Right, and I guess it's Donut Hole does the bags, you know, when you get a to-go meal. Captain Nix, actually, I don't know that he's captain, he may be higher, undersheriff, I think is the proper term now. Undersheriff Nix actually mentioned that out on 30A, one of the things that seems to really work well is they have painted the beach flag system on the boards. And the idea being when you walk, you tend to look down when you're walking, and so people really see those beach flag colors as they're walking down the boardwalks. So he made that suggestion, and maybe it's something we want to look into on the accesses that we have, just being in another layer of trying to get that awareness out there.
What do we have on our beach? We already have some signs, flag signs.
We have a sign, yeah, right as you go down, there's usually, the sign is posted, and then there'll be a flag, if not a lifeguard stand with the flag at the lifeguard stand.
Yeah, and they pay about as much attention to that apparently as they do the leave no trace behind.
Yeah,
sign as well.
There is a good note too, because Chief Joe let me know that there was a joint meeting between Destin Fire and some representatives from the state last week, and they are looking at putting lifeguards, City of Destin lifeguards, Destin Beach Safety, on Henderson Beach State Park because we have had several incidents of near drownings and drownings out at the state park, which is not lifeguarded. So that would be a tremendous asset, I think, moving forward.
All right, is that all you got? Moving on down the line, Mr. King.
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, sir. I just have one thing. Last meeting, I asked if staff and city manager could bring a livery vessel registration, which is coming up in November. And I know after the meeting, I was informed that the next meeting is going to be very full and pretty lengthy. So I don't think there's any official presentation or anything that's prepared, because I know I asked for the second meeting in October. So I do have just a couple of questions, though, since this is in the public and the registration is around the corner. Could we get just a double reminder when registration opens and what the deadline is for livery vessels applications? November 1 opens, I know that, but deadlines?
So November 1 is when the applications become available, and then March the 1st is, Joey's squinting, so.
Last day of February.
I'm sorry, I missed it by one day.
Because of the.
February 28th is the last day of the registration period.
Roger that.
And I know we had a discussion today, and I'll share with the council, there's some livery vessel registrations that happen that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, but you give livery vessel applications when they register and you get the sticker, but we might not know if they actually they have the docks for the livery vessels. Possibly. And so I know it was a long day for me and probably a lot of people, but is the review process going to ensure that, before you approve somebody, that we make sure they have, would you say, dockage for the livery vessel, or is that just not doable?
Going off of what we talked about this morning with Kim, there's an issue between transit and private versus public, and it doesn't state it in the code on one end, but it states it in the code on the other end that transit's at a certain time, 6 hours. If you're going to rent it out, it's got to be 6 days, 7 days. So there's some confliction there that we got to get cleaned up.
But and not just that, and I'm just can you remind me for any application,
Right.
when somebody at a private operation on the harbor applies, is the review process to make sure that they have available docks behind their business on the harbor that aren't already full before we approve it?
Yeah, they submit a submerged land lease, but we only require the parking, how many boats they can have.
I guess I just want to make sure, I think we would need to know if you can park the boats back there if you're going to get a livery vessel sticker. So do we need to change the ordinance? Do we need to change
So I think there's
requirements? What do you think we need to do?
Two things we need to probably do. One, we need to change our process, the internal staff process, to include verifying that there are actual docks that are available for these rental pontoon boats to use. Two, and I'm going to defer to Kim if I misstate this, but I think it would probably involve a code revision to include that also. Because right now, physical parking for vehicles, cars, is included, and restrooms are included, but the actual requirement for a dock is not currently included.
Kim, is that something that we need to direct or update the ordinance?
Yeah, exactly. So when a livery vessel application is received, it is approved if it meets the livery vessel code. So since there is nothing in that particular code requiring a certain amount of slips per vessel, or per anything, per square footage, that's not part of the process. The process includes reviewing the parking, the bathrooms, like Lance said, but there's not a requirement for the slips, and so that is why they can be approved without without that being reviewed. So yes, if council wants to make that change to the code, that would require council direction. And I don't know if we just want to ask Louis if he has an opinion on, waiting for some information from the harbor study. And if you all don't want to wait, that's in your discretion as well. It's just a thought, but y'all can direct it now if you want to.
Does it behoove us to wait until we have the results from this harbor capacity study?
I'm always of the opinion that whenever you do something, you got to have good reason for it. And that's why, for me, the study is key to get a sense of what capacities we're talking about. And so you certainly can direct us to do something, but the rationale for it, for me, I don't have a good one at this point.
Yeah, I think the internal stuff that city manager says is fine. I'm not wanting to talk about capacity. I'm just talking about the basic necessities of that there's actually space to put pontoon boats behind their building, which doesn't take anything in regards to codes. I think that's just internal process, I hope. So, but that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Mr. Destin, I see you want to make a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make one observation. Your submerged land lease that is attached to the property will say whether or not you can have pontoon boats there at all. And if it does not say you can have them, then you cannot have them. And pretty simple. And that's the state of Florida will enforce that. If you're violating that submerged land lease, they have the ability to pull it.
And that's through, now this may be a stupid question, but the Corps of Engineers, I guess, they determine they're handling the capacity study. So they're going to determine how, what you can have there or can't have there. Is that right?
I'm not sure what function the Corps does. I know that I've been through the submerged lease process many, many times. And the primary one that carries the water is DEP. And then Corps comes in and says, okay, what you did is all right. It's not going to impact the navigable waterways, et cetera, that they have jurisdiction over. But DEP pays very close attention to that, and they charge you a fee determined by how many boats you're allowed under that submerged land lease to have behind your property. And every year you have to submit a revenue report to them. And the simple thing is, say, if you're in the business, and let's look at that submerged land lease to see if the state of Florida says you can be there.
Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. If I understand your question, I think I agree with you. If they can't, by their submerged land lease, have pontoon boats, then we know that because we get a copy of the submerged land lease. If their submerged land lease says they can have pontoon boats, it ought to say how many they can have. Yeah. And we should be able to determine that. I understand what you're saying, Louis, but I'm not really keen on waiting on the harbor study, which won't come out till after we've already closed the application period for next year. So I think there ought to be a way. I think there may be a way, and we're just not looking at the right section of the submerged land lease or something. But I agree with you. If they're only supposed to have 6, or they're only allocated 6, then that's all they should be able to get applications completed for or approved for. Am I missing something here, I guess?
I want to Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, we do actually regulate the number of vessels, and they can't have more than what is permitted in their submerged land lease. But I think the separate question that Council Member Schmidt was posing was more about the slips. If you are allowed to have 20 pontoons, there is not a code requirement for a certain number of slips, 20 or otherwise. So if you all want to make that a code requirement, and for me, my personal opinion is when we make these code changes, Louis and I tend to prefer to do things comprehensively instead of piecemeal them. So if there was a time we were going to look at regulations, such as when the harbor results come in, and then we could do things holistically, that's our preference. However, if you think it can't wait, you all are the decision makers, and it is your prerogative to direct us to address it earlier and to put in a code requirement. We could either take specific direction, or we could come back to you with ideas for how a slips requirement could be calculated, and let you kind of weigh in on which option you prefer.
Thank you, Kim. I'll get to you. I have a comment, Mr. Destin, lead to follow up on Jim's comment. Are we using submerged land lease as part of the documentation that each livery vessel owner or company has to provide? I do, they have to do upland parking. Do they have to provide a submerged land lease for the property where they're operating out of? Okay, so you already have that tool already?
Yes.
Because I know of one submerged land lease that's in total violation of their requirement. And I think you and I have already talked about it, so that's for another day. Number two is if we were to go down the route that Kim spoke of, would staff like to make a few recommendations on how they would like for that to look?
Which route?
If we want to not wait for the for the capacity study, and I think some people are a little confused. The harbor capacity study is not geared directly at how much more stuff we can put in there. There's still undeveloped properties on the harbor. There's still ways for a present waterfront landowner to actually increase his docks and can get permitted for it as long as he follows all the guidelines. So it's not going to stop dock building or limit X amount of vessels, whatever type they are. It's just an overall overview of the possibilities and to give us some guidance. So I think some people think that the harbor capacity is going to say, you can only put 21 more boats in this harbor. That's as many. I don't think that's not what this is going to do. It's going to cover a ton of different things: water quality, storm management. It will talk about safety and what you can do with the channel and that kind of stuff. So there's a good reason to wait on that study. I think Kim's a big proponent of us waiting before we take legislative action. Because there's nobody here tonight. We start doing that, there's going to be a lot of people here. And so one of the things about waiting for the harbor capacity study is when it does get a little sticky, it does give us a position or platform to operate our legislative actions from, using the study as one of our guidelines, along with what we're already doing. Dewey.
Okay, the only point I was going to make is all submerged land leases are online. As long as you all have required them to provide it, then you can look and see. The other point I would make is on the harbor capacity study and waiting. I'm not sure that we can wait. All we're asking, and all I think Mr. Schmidt is asking is, look at the submerged land lease and see if that operation is allowed. Yeah. If it's not, then it can't happen. And that's pretty simple. I'm not even sure, maybe they need to change the ordinance and tweak it to say if you don't have permission from the state of Florida in the form of submerged land lease, then you can't get this license. That's pretty simple. But as far as depending on the capacity study to go forward with this issue, I don't see that as necessary.
Yeah. It wasn't my intent. My intent was our overall approach to Destin Harbor. Go ahead, Jim.
I thought his point was two-pronged. You have to have the right to have pontoon boats there, and you have to have the capacity on the piece of property. You have to have, if 8 slips, you can get approval for 8 pontoon boats. If you have 8 slips, you can't get approval for 20 pontoon boats, because and maybe I misunderstood where Kevin was going. So, I'm going to support, if you want it brought back, I'll support that. I just want to make sure I'm clear on where you're going, what you're trying to achieve.
No, that's fine, and I don't want to do capacity study. It's multiple reasons, but 4 of us that got here most recent, besides Mr. Bagby, started with livery vessel folks down here. And that process that we got thrown into, that first meeting, carried on for up to 6 months, and in some way or another is still carrying on. And the application starts November 1. And there are companies and parcel owners that have blatantly violated for months. And I have an issue. I think some of us have issues with how it's been handled. And so I don't know, I guess, the answer tonight of what, I'm asking, I guess, city manager or staff that we give you all the tools to do it. You know, why are we approving a application packet without first double checking that there was space behind there? I assume they are double checking, but I don't think it was. And that might be a staff issue back 6 months ago or whatever, but you know, it's starting November 1, and I'm just hopeful that this go around, it's going to be a lot smoother, because literally for almost 12 months now, it's been interesting. And I know there are some changes that it's going to make it smoother, but it sounds like internally there's things that are stepping up that are going to make it better. But I don't think we need to change an ordinance, it sounds like right now, to enforce what should already be enforced. I think we're fine.
Well, can I ask the staff one question? Maybe I'm confused, because you're right, I wasn't here for the 6 months of the turmoil. Do we not check to make sure that if they're applying for 12 stickers, that there are 12 places on the submerged land lease that they've provided you for those vessels?
Yeah, it goes through an engineering review, building review, planning review, and code review.
Okay.
Everything's reviewed. The main issue is transient versus commercial.
Okay.
Yes, it is. So maybe that's something we need to pinpoint. And to support what Kevin's asking for, I think you know what he's asking for. How do we get to there? Kim may want to weigh in. I may not want to put that on your back, Joey. How do we, there's a little gray area. How do we handle that?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. How do we handle what? I mean, my comment about the city code is because, yes, we can review submerged land leases and not issue a registration if they're not in compliance with their submerged land lease. And I believe that staff already does that. But my comment is, beyond the registration, we do not enforce the state's permitting or the state's leases or anything of that nature. We only enforce our own codes. So anything that is in our own code is enforceable by us. So that's all I'm trying to distinguish between. But Mayor, what question did you want me to answer specifically?
Well, you touched on it by saying that we don't enforce state requirements, which is, to me, is apparently we need to fix that, because, you know, everything we do is supposed to be in conjunction with Florida statute or county ordinances, as long as, you know, it's something that's outside our regulatory responsibility. The big question is what Joey and I were just talking about, wink, wink, nod, nod, was the difference between commercial entities and transient. People are abusing the transient slip deal to be able to put more boats in there. So that's a loophole that needs to be addressed. Just to say it out loud for Joey's benefit.
Sorry, the transient slip issue is actually already addressed in code and enforceable now. So we can clarify it. And if council wants us to come back with suggestions to help code enforcement, we can do that. But it is currently enforceable right now to stop boats from being in short-term transient slips for more than 6 hours at a time.
Yeah, I'd like to also see if, Joey, I hate to task you with anything, as busy as you are, but maybe you could give us a report on any need or ask that you need from your department that we need to address, and put it under maybe the city manager's report. Does that sound good? Just so we can have some clarification of any crises or issues before we get to this November 1st opening. I know you guys have worked hard on your application process and everything you've done over the last 12 months, but basically what Kevin's getting to is when we start November 1, we want everything, the I's to be dotted, the T's to be crossed, everybody on the same page. So if things do get a little sticky as we move forward in the regulatory process, that we have defensible positions for all the decisions that are being made. Joey?
Yeah, 10-4, just to give you a quick update. I mean, that's why, we stressed for about 2 years, garbage in, garbage out. Put the proper, we need the drawings, we need the drawings, we need the drawings. We needed the proper documentation so we could put it in the system. So in November, when it comes registration time, they're gonna go there and it's gonna say, do you have any changes? Yes or no? No. It don't have to go through a planning review. Triggers code, we make sure the documents are correct. The registration, I'm creating a registration division, 2 officers. They're going to do nothing but registrations. That's going to speed up all your registrations. And then they're going to go out there, the officers are going to go out there, count the parking spots, count the businesses, the BTRs, do they match? Is there any changes? No, there's not. Boom. It should be right out the door within a week, 2 weeks. Should be no holdups, depending. Now, we're going to put it on the forefront as it comes, so we're going to try and get them out. Now, let's say the officer goes out there. Oh, they got this business. They got that business. Oh, they changed that parking to this. Oh my God. That's going to trigger a denial. Then they're going to have to submit. Then it's going to go into planning review, engineering review, so on and so forth. So those may take longer. The ones that did changes that are trying to hide the changes.
Kevin?
No, the only thing I would say is what you said sounds good, but I didn't hear you say about, maybe I don't understand the process, but checking the submerged land lease?
That's checked, yes. Sir. We looked at all the submerged land leases,
Gotcha.
their parking diagrams, is it changed,
Gotcha.
is it the same, so on and so forth.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. I was done.
All right, thank you, Kevin. I'm up. Now, we were moving right along with our meeting until this segment, and unfortunately, I have something to add here that's going to create a little bit of discussion. As we've talked about before, the city manager evaluation process hasn't been done for a couple of years now. The ordinance that dictated that was done in 2013. That's 8 years ago. Like everything that's old, it probably needs to be checked and updated. Y'all got a copy of that approved 2013 manager evaluation form, and I live by a philosophy of KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And after I looked at that thing, it was anything but simple. In fact, I actually started filling it out just to see, was my first impression true, or was I just being lazy at the time? So I started filling it out. About 40 minutes in, and I was still only on item 4, and there was still 3 or 4 more sections to do. I was like, dude, there's got to be a better way. And so I talked with Lance and Webb about this, where this particular form came from. I did a little research when it was passed. I'm not sure if any, were you on there, Jim, when that was happening? You may be able to give a little. It was not there. Okay, so when I get done talking here, I'll let you maybe give us a little history behind that deal. But anyways, what the main thing, apart from the time and the complexity of it, there's at least 45% of those questions on there I couldn't honestly ask with a knowledgeable answer, because none of us are in city staff meetings or meetings between department heads and are around our city manager on a daily basis. We have our weekly briefings with him, or we call and talk to him on the phone, but there's some of the stuff on that form that you truly can't answer in an open and honest way. And when you're evaluating a guy on his job, you need to be able to give your opinion and base your understanding of his successes and weaknesses based on true knowledge. So that was problematic. And last but not least, in that document, he also sent us the 6-month midterm document. And I looked at that and I'm like, that should be what we use to evaluate our city manager. not only was it short and concise, but it had sections that we can honestly relate to and evaluate our city manager on. And more importantly, it had a comment section where you could actually verbalize in print why you feel the way you feel. And the reason I'm saying all this is a little bit selfish, because guess who gets to get all those reports and summarize them?
You.
Me. And the thought of filling one out and then having to go back and read 7 of those made me say, we got to do something different. So I asked Lance, I think he tasked Webb, and I'm sure if he has something he can add, to see what other cities do. But at the minimum, I recommend that we take a hard look on that 6-month midterm form and use that for our annual report, because the easier it is for all of us to do it, I think we'll be more apt to do an annual city manager report, and we'll also do a 6-month report, which is only fair to Lance. So he knows how we feel and how we evaluate him. And it also makes, keeps us on track of how well our city managers following our visioning and implementing the things that the council wants to do. So those are my comments. I'll look for Jim for a little historical perspective, and then I'll ask Webb what he found out about other ways that we can do it, or whether we can just use our existing midterm.
Quick question.
Okay.
What day did you send that so I can pull it up? Or I'm trying to look at it.
It was in the briefing document.
Yeah.
It's
That
in the-
explains why I can't find an email. All right, thank you.
No, it was in the briefing document under my name, actually.
Go to the mayor.
Jim, give us a little historical background, how that particular form came to be.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't remember, but we had the same problem that we have now. We hadn't evaluated the city manager in a while. We didn't like what we had, so and really the important part from my perspective, as I remember it, of that whole thing was the flow chart. Sure. Okay? So I would keep the flow chart because it allows the city manager to suggest, here's my objectives for the year. It allows the city council to approve those objectives or modify those objectives, and then it allows the city manager to come back, so there's a feedback loop there. And then we have the action. The actual form, to me, the critical part of the form, if you go to page 12.
The fact that there's 12 pages is
Yeah.
problematic.
Well, I don't think I ever filled it out completely. Because 90% of the first 11 pages is, if they're not doing it, if you mark something unsatisfactory, you probably have more problems with your city manager than do you expect them to set a good example for the staff? Yeah, if that's unsatisfactory, then you've got a problem. But the weaknesses, strengths, and performance objectives. Okay, so what areas of the city manager perform? And I always did 3 up and 3 down the year, or maybe 2 that I filled it out. I think I only filled it out 1 year. I just did, because that's how I operate. Here are the 3 things you're doing well. Here are the 3 things you need to improve. Because if you do 20, if everything's a number 1 priority, nothing is a number 1 priority. So, and then the opportunities and recommendations for improvement. And then let the city manager have a comment or whatever. And then the interim was at some point, and I can't remember when, but evaluations, and businesses have been doing this for a while, not doing just an annual, because you come in for your annual review and you're going to get your raise, or you're going to get your bonus, or you're going to get your whatever, and it's boom, you haven't met my objectives. Okay, I've been here a whole year and you're just now telling me that I didn't meet my objectives. So we tried to model that on best practices on businesses, which we're going toward giving an interim review and saying, hey, you need to work on this a little bit, you need to do a little bit less of that. And so that is, all the little hashtag unsatisfactory, people have gotten away from that for the most part, even in business. I think you're going to find that they have in the public sector also, and focused on, here's what you need to improve on, here's what you're doing well or you need to sustain, and then doing the interim review, because it can't just be annual.
Yeah, and I thought that interim review form was more geared towards what you preferred. So how we got that, I don't know. Webb, what did you find out when I actually tasked you to look into some other places or other forms, stuff like that? Would you like to share with us? And then I got some folks that want to weigh in here.
And yes, I worked with the HR director, and we did receive a few other city manager evaluation forms, and they were simpler than what we have. So that is something that we are looking at and reaching out even more further into Florida organizations to see what else is out there. I'd also like to emphasize that the evaluation needs to be in alignment with our strategic planning process. That is extremely important because the strategic plan is what council does adopt, and it is our focus point from an organizational planning standpoint. So obviously there's other components to the review other than just that, but that is an important component. And our strategic planning process has recently changed. We had elections originally that were in March, and now it is in November, so that kind of changes the timeline through the year. So sorry, I don't mean to be long-winded, but the long and short of it is times have changed with our strategic planning. I do believe there's opportunity for improvement to get in alignment with that, as well as simplify the forms.
Okay, cool. And that's the whole gist of my conversation here, is that we simplify the process so we don't not do it, which is what's happened here lately. And not only to that, but because we have had a change in our election cycle, we have had a change in our visioning cycle, and the visioning document and the things that we legislate are really critical to evaluating how well the city manager's doing his job. And so in fairness to him, we do need to line all these ducks in a row. So we're out of kilter right now. I don't know the timeline. I would like to maybe see some simplified forms or recommendations, not at this next city council meeting because we have enough on our agenda already. I know it puts us behind the evaluation, but we hadn't done one for 3 years, so what's another 3 weeks or 4 weeks? So I'd like to see if you guys could come up with, give us some examples, put it on the agenda for the meeting after that, to where it'll be in our briefing document so we all can review them, and some people can say, hey, I like this one, or I don't like that one, or pick out things, and we'll form our own out of 3 different documents, whatever it would take. So that's where I'd like to go with that. I want to make sure that we give our city manager a fair but clear and concise evaluation, not only if it means using that, considering his salary, but more importantly, as a professional city manager, it serves him well to know where people perceive his weaknesses to be so he can work on those. And also to make sure, give him the confidence that he's doing the right thing for what we expect out of him. So it's only fair to the city manager, whether it's Lance or anyone else down the road. I hope we can make a roadmap that will serve other councils far beyond 2021. So I got a couple folks that want to go first. Next is Kevin Schmidt. No, first is Teresa, Kevin Schmidt, and then everybody wants to weigh in. So I'll call you one at a time. Go ahead, Ms. Abear.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I looked through this and you know, like Jim, 20 years in the Navy, I managed tons of people and did evaluations, and you had maybe like Exhibit B1, the first page, there's A through J, and then you've got block 1 through 5. That was as much as you really needed, because all of those are exactly what we as council would deal with Lance on in a professional setting of what his expectations are. And then you expound on anything that you either gave him a 1 or a 5 on the next page. So, yeah, I was just like, I was choked at how long and drawn out this was. And I thought, this is why he hasn't been evaluated. This is too much information drawn out over stuff that we as a council would never see his active. So I agree, we need to change it, and I don't even know if we need to follow what other cities do. I think we need to take a hard look at this and look at what, we don't need 5 pages to evaluate, and we need 1 page with a ranking 1 through 5. That first E1 is the grade exhibit, and then expound on anything that's low or anything that's high, so he knows where he's weak and where he's doing great, so that we can at least get him up to date on where he should be pay-wise 3 years later.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thank you. I think like Webb said though, and you know, this is a lengthy document, but the majority of it is tied to the strategic goals of the city at that time. So there's only about two pages of actual, you know, the checkbox stuff. So while it is long, I mean, if there was a lot of strategic goals back in 2013, then that's why this document is very lengthy. So, you know, I hear you, this one's long, but it's important to still keep those strategic goals in this evaluation. I mean, 8 years ago, it talks about the harbor master and making the harbor. That's what we're talking about tonight, you know? So that didn't get carried forward through some city managers, I guess. But I do think, I also don't want to kick it down the curb too long because we owe it to Lance and everyone to, you know, make it simpler is fine, but, you know, 2 weeks from now we have a big meeting, and then November, December, and, you know, so we might have to just make a short-term decision of using something that we already have rather than tasking HR and everybody else to go find something for the next
My
2 months.
recommendation would be to use the midterm one instead of that one. Ms. Ramswell?
I was just going to say, I'm with you. I mean, I've written evaluations, like literally helped create the document. And with what you were saying, Mayor, I mean, bring us some ideas. I mean, it's easy enough to look at our strategic plan and, you know, demonstrated efficiency in addressing council objectives, you know, promotes the mission and vision of the city of I mean, things like that align, like you're talking about, Webb. It's not going to be that difficult to put it together. And I know this is the mayor's job. I'm happy to help and assist if you need someone. But yeah, I look forward to seeing a revised document.
Mr. Bagby? Oh, you pulled it down, Mr. Destin?
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. The city manager's in a rather unique position of all the employees, along with the city attorneys. He serves at the pleasure of the council. And that's a really nebulous term. I have no problem with trying to make it less nebulous, but as far as filling out a form that we submit to the manager out of the sunshine, he then submits it to the mayor, who evaluates it out of the sunshine and makes a recommendation. I remember when this passed in 2013 and I was on the school board and I was turning backflips going, you can't do that. You can't, the public, if it doesn't violate the letter of the Sunshine Law, it certainly violates the reason for it. These decisions are supposed to be made at a public meeting. You can't, otherwise, Ms. Hebert and I can pass notes back and forth about things we're going to vote on, and that's okay. It's not. And so the very mechanism of collecting them all and doing private interviews, I can't do that. It's pretty clear to me that that would be polling, and that's a violation of the Sunshine Law. So I don't have any problem with going to the city manager and having an evaluation and telling him what I think he does wrong and what I think he does right, and then making a motion at council to give him a raise. Any one of us can do that any day. I understand the rationale behind what they did back in 2013 to try to bring some rational path to the chaos of evaluating a city manager. And I would support trying to do that, but as far as doing documents that I pass to someone else who's going to evaluate them and then bring them back and tell us what we should do, I can't do that. I would recommend that none of you all do that.
Well, there you go, Kyle. Because you brought up a legal issue, because this is an ordinance of the city of Destin.
It's a resolution, in fact, which is not nearly as...
Is it a resolution or ordinance?
It's a resolution, and...
All right, go ahead, lay it on us.
When I first read the document, I also had similar concerns to Mr. Destin, and frankly, my law firm was not representing the city at the time that this resolution was adopted. But I would prefer if a more transparent process was adopted by the council as well.
Could I add an idea? Could we not update the resolution to do what you're saying, where it has more of a streamlined deadline to recommend that all city council members meet with the manager, and then by this date in November or December or whatever, it'll be, we'll know 6 to 8 weeks out when that meeting is coming on the city council for any and all recommendations from the city council from your evaluations over the past 2 or 3 months. Something along those lines of putting it, I guess, more on paper. Then it's up to us individually to go do that. And if you don't do it, you don't do it. But if you do it, then you're prepared for the meeting.
Before I got Mr. Bagby and Dr. Ramswell and Mr. King to speak, I want to turn back to our attorney. To do anything along these lines, do we have to rescind the resolution? Will that have to be part of our actions?
I mean, I think that we could just update the resolution to a process that maybe this council would be more comfortable with. I don't think we necessarily need to rescind this resolution.
Mr. Bagby.
Yeah, and as I think about it, this is more best practices from the League of Cities and the Sterling process that we were in the middle of in 2013. And I would suggest that we go back to those two organizations also, besides just other cities, and say, what are the best practices? And I hear what y'all are saying. I think when we crafted this resolution, we wanted to come to some consensus. And since we couldn't do it individually, I mean, we could meet on, if we had to, I would assume an executive session for an HR issue if we wanted to discuss just like we would a legal issue. Can we?
No, generally only pending litigation and collective bargaining can you meet an executive session as a agency of the state. I don't believe there's an exception for HR type situation.
Because that's what we were trying to solve is not having 7 people.
Because I don't have to do a summary.
And the reason we picked the mayor is because it was a council manager, so you weren't actually one of the actors, or the mayor wasn't one of the actors doing the evaluation, even though the mayor probably did do an evaluation. The mayor collected it and then counseled. There's got to be a way, and I'm fine meeting with Lance individually, whatever y'all want to do, but there's got to be a process.
Dr. Ramswell, and then Mr. King.
So I've been here, I think, right as Bagby and Mr. Destin left, 2014. And since then, I've only done 2. One for Mr. Casella and one for Ms. Lejeune, and they were both done differently. With Mr. Casella, we all did this evaluation you see here, and then we gave it to Mr. Ponder, who was the mayor at the time, and then he announced, and similar to what you're describing tonight. With Ms. Lejeune, Karen, who was the HR director, was the one that received our evaluations, and then I brought back sort of a, here's what overall, they ranked 4 in this category and 3, blah, 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 blah. So each of them were handled a little bit differently. So I don't know if that gives you any insight, but there were problems, and we were encouraged to meet with them and discuss it on our own to try to address some of the issues we may have been experiencing. Twice in 7 years is what we...
Yeah, and the end result for both of those weren't good. Go ahead, just Mr. King, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, it sounds like we should push to avoid this for your sake, Lance. Just avoid it, Well, this may be a silly question, but it seems like it might be a really smart question also. What if you just can you make it totally anonymous? Does that violate sunshine rules if it's anonymous?
I think that the issue is the transparency, and we're trying to make the process more transparent and avoid those types of issues where people from the public are looking at it and be like, what's going on here?
But they are public records, so anybody can look at them. So
Sure.
it makes it transparent from that degree.
It is transparent, and let me be clear, my opinion is not that the resolution violates the Sunshine Law. My opinion is that we could make the process more transparent, and we could probably adopt something that clearly does not violate the Sunshine Law.
Mr. Destin.
I'll make a motion asking the city attorney to bring back some suggestions to us on how to make the process more transparent and not violate the sunshine laws.
I got a motion, I got a second.
Second, yeah.
I'll make the first.
Could you just include city staff in that so I can work with Nicole and Webb as well?
Yes. Okay, is the second okay with that? All right, I don't think we need any discussion, and other than say I'm in favor of this, because that takes me out of the loop, and that was going to be an enviable position with that particular document. So, all right, we got that solved. Lastly, we got to vote on it, so we got a motion, we got a second. Ayes have it, so moved. Man, if we're really fast on these last two items, we'll be out of here at 8 o'clock, which is my New Year's resolution from last year, not this year, to get out of here. So Kim, I'll give you 5 minutes and Kyle 5 minutes.
I don't even need 5 minutes unless you all have questions. I talked to all of you outside of the meeting, and I'm just asking for direction to slow down for now the ordinance regulating air tours at the airport, given some changes since your direction was first given. If you want me to expound on that, I will, but I've talked to you outside of the meeting, so that's all I'll say for now, unless you need more.
Do you need that in motion form, Kim?
Yes, I would need a motion to basically postpone proceeding with the ordinance regulating the air tours at this time.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none?
Yeah, I clicked that button, Mr. Mayor.
Dang it. Make it quick, sir. No,
Well,
you take your
with all due
time.
respect,
You got 4 hours left before it's tomorrow. So go ahead.
Fantastic.
Clear us,
Thank you so
right?
much. I appreciate all the approval. Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's kind of confusing to say you need clarity to regulate tours. I mean, all the direction was to update a table on the ordinance. And I also don't think it should be, in my opinion, I don't think we should be going to ask property owners of any property what they think about certain things, how it's going to affect them before we do it. It's just my personal opinion that we didn't need to go ask the county what they think about us once we change this ordinance or this use. And we have citizens that have expressed their interest in fighting for updating what's going on at the airport. And if something could potentially happen in a year, 2 years from now, then maybe it will. But we're just delaying to let the county tell us what they think we should or shouldn't do. And I don't appreciate that type of partnership. Because as we saw earlier with Dr. Ramswell, they're about to change their building heights and the areas of the footage without ever asking us if this would impact us or not. And like Mr. Bagby said, maybe it's in Crestview, but maybe it's not. And they didn't never seem to care to ask us how that works with ours. And it's not about this versus them, but I just think we should have continued to press forward with the plan and let the public and the county come to that meeting at the LPA like it was supposed to be done, and then express their opinions publicly at that point. Just my 2 cents. And so I'm not in favor of delaying anything. I want the process to continue on as is.
Well,
Okay, so just for clarity, I'm not asking for clarification or however I think it was just explained. I don't need clarity to say that this puts the city at a serious legal risk of very expensive litigation. The update is not that we are being asked by the county to delay anything. That is one portion that the city attorney did speak with the county attorney. However, my request for change in the directive would have existed whether or not that phone call that I was not a part of took place because of changes since your previous direction. I was not legally in favor of the direction in the first place, but it's your prerogative to weigh the risks to the city and make a legislative decision as to whether those risks are outweighed by the benefits to the city. And I certainly understand that and respect the council's decision. And that's why when the directive was given, we proceeded down that path. However, since that time, there has been 8-figure litigation filed against individuals and local governments. And it's my opinion that the city does not need to get embroiled in that at this time. There's no benefit or very little benefit to the city, and there's very high risk. So it has really nothing to do with needing clarification. For me, it's clear.
Thank you, Kim. And we do have a motion. We do have a second. We were about to vote, but apparently now we're going to have a lot of discussion on this. All of us have just heard from the legal suggestion of this particular discussion. Up first, Dr. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is an issue that very much bothers me, especially since I live near the airport and it was awful this summer. And literally the day it changed, it was an immediate, obvious change, so much more pleasant. With that said, something during my conversation with Ms. Kopp today really hit home, and it laid it out for me. As a city, we do the zoning. So we're in charge of zoning certain areas for certain uses, and I get that. So one of the uses obviously is aircrafts, helicopters, etc. However, in this instance, because it's a federal airport, the FAA actually has the jurisdiction over things like frequency and different noise decibels and things of that nature. So when it was put to me in that way, I can kind of see it differently, how it's in the hands of the FAA in terms, I mean, we could try to do something about, no travel versus military, but then it's almost like spot zoning, like we're trying to change uses. But I'm like you, it's very concerning, and I'd like to do something, but I do see the distinction now between what we technically can do as a city and then what the FAA is responsible for in this case. So I just thought I'd share that because it kind of helped me weigh things.
Mr. King?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Just real quick, I just want to say that I'm in agreement with Kevin, or I'm in agreement with Councilman Schmidt, and I think the risks, potential risk, I'm gonna be for this, but I'm total agreement with you tonight, Kevin.
Mr. Bagby?
Yeah, nobody likes helicopters. Not a single person up here, not a single person I've met in the city other than the applicant and the people that run them. The issue for me is pretty much what Dr. Ramswell said. We can't outlaw, we can't regulate unless Kim tells us that we can set hours or we can set, some restrictions on that. If it's an all or nothing, we have to go with the thing that protects the city from being sued. We have a fiduciary responsibility up here, and I'm not afraid of being sued, particularly if I think we're going to win or we can outspend them or whatever, but I'm not sure that's the case here. And so if Kim tells us we can set limits, they can't fly before 10 a.m. or after 6 p.m. or whatever, and they can only have 3 flights per hour or whatever, or 3 takeoffs per hour, I'd be the first person to jump on that. But if she tells me it's all or nothing, the fiduciary in me tells me I'm going to have to work with the county to get them to restrict the behavior there.
Yeah, Jim, you kind of stole my thunder because this council's responsibility is to legislate and to do so in a manner that lives up to our vision, our city visionary document, and the health and welfare of the people is part of that, Kevin. So you're right on, spot on with it. It affects members of our community. But one of your other most key responsibilities as a council member up here, and myself as mayor for that matter, is to do so with always mitigating risk to this city. And this is Kim Kim's been pretty good with her legal representation of this city up to this point, and so has Kyle, and we've always leaned on them a lot, and in this particular case, she said now is not the time, and I think we need to adhere to that, because what she's speaking about is risk mitigation. There's, as much as we wish we had control of everything around here, we don't. And so that's just, sometimes you just have to accept that. We can do everything we can within the powers of the Florida statute and county and in our powers of our own ordinances and stuff, land development codes. But there are some lines that we cannot cross without exposing ourselves to something that the city really can't afford. So
If I could just ask you a question to follow up, and then you can call the vote if you want, it's fine.
Go ahead, thanks.
What do you think then is, we're not breaking a law from my understanding, we're not breaking any law by possibly doing this change. There's potential that the FAA might come down on the owner of the property because of a federal grant. That's a possibility. And then they might come and talk to us at that point about you change the usage that's affecting the grant. Well, FAA so far has not been quick to respond to really anything by the county or anybody. So, if that's one reason of why we're potentially not wanting to change it, I know that's not the only reason, but one reason, I still don't understand if we're not breaking the law by changing it tomorrow or at the end of October, then, maybe we change it and then the FAA comes knock on the door 2 years from now. But I don't see a problem making a change now that's not effectively breaking the law. I don't see the risk that we're putting ourselves out there. That's all. But thank you.
That's your purview, but the people that are involved in this apparently have taken exception to that, and so they're suing the Okaloosa County for hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm pretty sure 11 million. Yeah, 11 million, not hundreds of thousands, but $11 million. And I'm sure that if we do something that's going to try to exasperate that position, that will get named in the lawsuit right along with Okaloosa County. So they've got to deal with that.
Maybe we will, but maybe we won't.
Well,
our citizens don't want helicopters and things like that. So I could care less what they're doing to the county.
I understand that, Kevin, but our legal representation just said we ought not to do it.
You're using that as an example.
It's based on her recommendation, sir. So anyways, everybody said their piece. I've said mine. Let's go ahead and take a vote.
Wait, I forgot. Are we voting for the affirmative or the negative? Can someone repeat it?
Motion is to postpone proceeding with the ordinance regulating helicopter tours.
Ayes have it, so moved. All right, Kyle, you wind this up.
I have nothing to follow up that.
Ooh, thank God.
3 minutes late. That's my fault, though, because I got arguing with Kevin. So me and Kevin ran the 3 minutes over. This is last but not least, opportunity for public comment. No one's coming up to the podium.
Thank you for being here.
Yes. Hey, but let me tell you what, folks, before I hit the gavel.
And people that are watching, thank you for watching, because Mr. Mayor, people do care about our meetings, and they watch them online, too.
I got some emails to that effect. Let me tell you what, if we can keep our meetings to 2 hours, I think these seats will fill up outside of the delivery vessel.
I tried to make that motion a couple years ago.
Yes.
It did not pass.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to do my very best, and you all have done a tremendous job as council members doing your briefing materials, interviewing with city manager and staff, and that's going to speed up these meetings. So thank you for your due diligence, and we will try our best for the citizens of the city to keep our meetings to 2 hours so our participation will increase. Meeting adjourned.